it going, everyone? The One MFP here. I hope you're all having a great day today. Today is a bit of a special day for me because it's officially been a year since I first posted a reaction video here on YouTube. So I would like to take the time, first and foremost, to thank all of you who take the time to watch these videos, who have taken an interest in them, who take the time to leave comments, leaving your feedback, opinions, thoughts. I really appreciate it. Just this whole experience of discovering music and wrapping my mind around them and giving out my thoughts about them. It's just a really fun experience, and sharing that with you guys makes it so special. It's hard to even put into words, but just connecting with you guys through all of that is such an amazing experience. So I'd like to thank all of you because you make all of this possible, and I mean, this whole adventure has been extremely fun for me, and I look forward to continuing on that adventure and further connecting with you all, so thank you so much. Now, in terms of what I'm reacting to here today, The Hype by 21 Pilots, the music video, I mean, I've been looking forward to reacting to this since it first came out about 2 weeks ago. Haven't quite had the chance, so what better time than now? I'm really curious about this one. It's one of my favorite songs off of Trench, definitely one of my favorite 21 Pilots songs in general. There's a few different reasons for that. On one hand, just the whole narrative I think of when I think of 21 Pilots music, starting way back from before 21 Pilots, so Tyler Joseph's writing in general, no fun intended era, just the way it progresses all the way to Trench and the themes embedded within Trench. This song is so important to the connections I think of when I think of all these things. And in another sense, as a standalone song on an individual level, I like this one a lot because, I mean, it just feels really relatable because we're all looking for ways to improve ourselves and improve on the things we care about. And it's kind of easy to get lost in expectations in that regard. We start looking towards opinions and criticisms to help provide us with guidance to improving ourselves in those respects. And, it's easy to get lost in those things. It's easy for those things to kind of become overpowering and end up being more influential than they necessarily need to be. I think it's important to take criticisms and opinions into account, but I think it's also important to not let those things stray you too far away from your initial goal. So for me, when I think of The Hype, I think of situations where you're kind of mostly fixating on the negative opinions and mostly rejecting or neglecting the positive ones. And when you do that, you're essentially saying that what you're doing is wrong, or you're accepting that what you're doing is wrong. And you're thinking that, these external influences know more about what's good for you than you do. And I think it's important to, kind of take some of that control back. That's the message I'm hearing. Whatever it is you're doing, understand that there's a reason you did it and the way you did it. And understand that, there is an appreciation for what you've done. So don't just fixate on those negative opinions. Understand that there is positives as well. So all that to say, I'm really curious to see how things are handled with this music video, because I feel like there's some really important things said here relating to Trench and relating to some of the other music videos as well. So I'm really curious to see what's going to be done here. So let's get right into it. The Hype by 21 Pilots. Whoa.
Sometimes I feel cold, even paralyzed. My interior world needs to sanitize. Nice to know my guide.
Oh, where'd they come from?
I don't believe the hype. Yeah, they might be talking behind your head. Your exterior world can step off instead.
That's pretty interesting.
It might take some friends and a warmer shirt. Nice to know my kind will be on my side. I don't believe the hype. time will be on my side. I don't believe the hype, and you know you're a terrible sight, but you'll be just fine. Just don't believe the hype. Will be on my side. I don't believe the hype.
Okay. Is that chlorine? Alright, full disclosure, I'm kind of glad that we have that ending scene where we kind of seen that all of this was happening inside Tyler, because I kind of forgot that initial scene where he opened up his torso and we zoomed into, I guess, his insides. In the early stages of the video, what really stood out to me was, you have them performing in front of a very small crowd inside, I guess, a living room. And nobody seems to really be paying attention. It seems to be more like this relaxed event where people are just hanging out and, they're performing for these people, but these people aren't really engaged with the music. So they move away from the setting, and that break where he takes the chord out of the bass and he moves to the garage setting. The first thing I was thinking was, okay, he doesn't seem to like the energy of that area, so he's gonna move to somewhere where he feels like he'll be able to perform in the way he wants to perform. And I feel like that thought alone is kind of influenced by something I heard a while back, while I was, right before I went to the 21 Pilots concert, so around May, I was watching some 21 Pilots interviews, and if I'm not wrong, an interviewer asked Tyler about his writing process. He talked about how he likes keeping his process as tight-knit as possible and involving the least amount of people as possible. So, they record in the home studio. He writes in isolation. If I'm recalling this correctly, he did reference the hype lines when he said that. He brought up the whole, I don't know which way I'm going, but I could hear my way around lines. He mentioned that sometimes when you involve more people, it kind of hinders what you're trying to accomplish. So when I saw these scenes where he's changing locations, I mean, first of all, he's saying, I can hear my way around. So I feel like he's saying that, he could figure out where he's trying to go just by following his intuition. Now, going back to what I was saying before actually reacting to this music video, sometimes in the name of self-improvement or improving something we're working on and what have you, sometimes we just listen to opinions and criticisms a little too much, and they influence the end product a little too much, and we end up with something we didn't really want to do or want to create. Or, not so much that we didn't want to create it, but it wasn't really what we had in mind. And so, maybe you're not completely satisfied with it. And the reason is you kind of neglected your initial purpose, your initial goal. You kind of just took what other people thought and kind of made it a bigger part of the creation than your actual, intuition. So going back to the music video, in that initial setting where the band was playing in this living room where people, I guess, seemingly didn't really care that much about the music, I feel like the band would have, over time, ended up adjusting themselves to the setting, and that would have affected their music and their performance. So they decided to move along into a different room. They decided to move along to the basement, where, initially it looked like it was more of an isolated space, which to me it related to what Tyler was saying about, you know, writing in isolation, or as much isolation as he can, to truly get in touch with certain thoughts and feelings and emotions. It was seemingly just Tyler and Josh, but then the garage door was open and you notice a crowd outside that was, you know, definitely more into the music than the one in the living room. And, you know, they performed there for a while and things seemed to be going well, but Tyler eventually moves to the roof of the house. There I was a bit confused because, you know, it didn't seem like the energy was a bad one in the garage. Not that the living room was a negative energy, you know, it's just that it wasn't as nurturing for the music or the performance, but the garage did feel like it was more like what they were looking for. But you know, they go to the roof and you have this much larger crowd. I think this is where the message of the song becomes a little bit more apparent in the music video, in that, you know, sometimes we do allow ourselves to get influenced by these opinions and it kind of takes us to places where we didn't really intend on going, right? Maybe in this specific situation, you know, that initial setting, maybe that was good enough for them. Maybe the garage was good enough for them. Once they went to the roof, I feel like it was a little bit too much, because it got to a point where the roof just caved in, it broke their home, and their home was kind of destroyed. You know, going to that roof, maybe they just weren't ready for that. Maybe it was part of the plan somewhere down the road, but, you know, following these opinions and these criticisms, they kind of forced themselves into that situation a little bit quicker than they were ready for. And so the roof ends up crumbling and they fall through it. It feels like maybe they were influenced to go up to that roof because they felt like they needed to strive for more. It's not necessarily that they were ready to strive for more. It's not that they felt like they needed to in that moment. They just felt like it was the next step and they had to take it. And probably external influences led them to taking those steps and they weren't ready for it. So they ended up back in their initial point, the first scene basically, but there's no people there at all. So they're back to the very beginning. That's the way I see it. And to me, that just brings me to Leave the City, where he said that he was having difficulties dealing with the pace of change. And, you know, that to me is exactly what's being represented here in this music video. He was put in a situation where he was trying to accommodate the changes and he just fell through the roof of that building and it ended up destroying his home. And then we move on to Pet Cheetah, where he says that he moves slow and he's trying to find ways to prepare himself for those changes, it seems, you know? He's dealing with this cheetah who, you know, intuitively wants to move fast, and Tyler's trying to find ways to move slow despite that fast pace. So to me, it's all about managing all that, and that's what the hype is all about in of itself, right? It's about managing your own expectations and the external ones. It's about taking the positives and the negatives and not giving too much power to either side. It's about finding a balance. With the hype, I think what we're seeing is this tendency to maybe get pushed a little too far by some of the negatives and kind of losing sight of the positives and therefore being pushed into a position that you may not be ready for. And to me, that's what this song and this music video represents as well. It's about finding that balance, not giving too much power to the negatives or the opinions that may differ from yours or the criticisms that may come your way, not giving those too much power, not neglecting the positives, not neglecting the things you're doing right, or the people who do enjoy what it is you're doing, who do care for what you have to say. You have to also take into account that there is this group of people that do enjoy what you've done. And one thing I really appreciated about this music video from a symbolic standpoint is, you know, as he's trying to replace his house or, you know, that initial setting, he uses yellow tape at one point to replace a picture frame, I believe it was. And, you know, we know yellow tape from the Trench videos to be something relating to the Banditos. And the Banditos are basically a representation of the fans or his support system, the people who love him, the people who care about him. It's interesting to me that when he falls down from that roof, he turns to that because he knows that he still has that. That's a beautiful thing. It shows me that he knows that no matter what, he's got people in his corner. And that's really important because we have three settings here. potentially 4 if we want to consider the destroyed living room to be a separate setting. We have these different settings, and in all of them, people are going to have opinions, people are going to have criticisms. So it's going to be important that you have a certain constant in all of those settings. And for Tyler here, I would say the banditos are that constant. No matter what situation he finds himself in, he knows that he has his kind, and his kind will have his back. And moving away from this specific music video, that's a common theme we've seen across all these Trench music videos, I believe. Starting with Jumpsuit, we have Tyler somewhat losing hope. You know, he says he can't deal with the pressures of this new place, and you got the sense that he's feeling defeated, so he's moving along with Nico until he sees that he has this support from the banditos. I don't think he knows they're banditos just yet, but he starts to feel like he's not alone. He starts to feel like he can have a support system. He starts to feel like there are these people who care about him, so he gets the hope to run away. And it's especially interesting if we start looking at the lyrics of that song, because, you know, in that specific section where Tyler is moving along with Nico, he's saying he'll be right there, but you'll have to tie him down, rip off his hands. He says you'll have to lift him by the throat. So that's taking away two things that we come to find to be fundamentally important to Tyler in his rough times. When it comes to those rough times, Tyler does turn to writing, he does turn to music. It's his way of dealing with his thoughts, it's his way of wrapping his mind around his thoughts and, you know, putting them into words, so to speak. It's his way of expressing himself. It's the way he knows how to deal with those things. So in order for him to completely lose hope, he would have to take those things away from him. But we come to find that there is another thing that can help him out in those times, and it happens to be the support. And we end up seeing that in Nico and the Niners when we move along to that video, because by the end of Jumpsuit, Tyler is being carried away by Nico because he has been beaten down, and he wasn't able to be saved in that situation. But the banditos didn't give up on him, right? Like, he ended up being, I guess, saved, if you want to call it that, but he ended up escaping Dima. He ended up reuniting with the banditos, and that ended up being something that helped him get out of this space that wasn't conducive to, I guess, a healthy mind space. So we have that, and then we end up going into Levitate, where we see a much more confident Tyler, to the point where he's taunting the evil, so to speak, right? He's saying, come down, come down. Cowards only come through when the hour's late and everyone's asleep, mind you. So he's noticed that these thoughts and this presence, whatever you want to call it, it has power under certain conditions. Once you're removed from those conditions, it has much less power and it has much less influence. So, I mean, if I think of those lines, when I think of when everyone's asleep, I'm thinking of Tyler's feeling isolated in those moments, so he has less of that support. So those thoughts have more space to work with. So when Tyler is away from that support, he has one less thing to support him. You know, he doesn't have his music or his writing. Or, I mean, he may have it, but he has to turn to it in those moments because he doesn't have the support he otherwise would have. And then we have Chlorine, which I feel relates quite a bit to this music video. I'm not completely sure, but it does seem like Josh is handing Tyler a cup very similar to the one he handed him in Chlorine, which would make sense, assuming that the hype is really about Tyler's relationship with music as well, and where influences can take him with respect to his music, something that is really important to him, as we come to find with Chlorine. I think it's pretty interesting that the ending scene in Chlorine is one where Tyler is in the pool. He seems to be wet and cold, and that's the opening line of the hype. Sometimes I feel cold, even paralyzed. It seems like he feels completely shut down in that state, right? He feels powerless, he feels helpless. And in that video, that's where Ned steps into the pool and, you know, provides some type of company to Tyler in that specific setting. And here in the hype, we see Ned in the crowd once Tyler and Josh are on the roof. So I think these are important things to think of if we're thinking of connectivity between the music videos. In my personal opinion, Ned holds some kind of relationship with the music itself. So if I'm thinking of that ending scene in Chlorine where Tyler is in that pool and Ned joins him, Ned essentially provides him with company, and if Ned is relative to the music in any sense, to me that just means that, you know, Tyler has music in that setting when he is feeling cold and alone. And I think Ned is a reminder of that, and, you know, Tyler kind of nurtures that in giving Ned a sip of that chlorine. And here in this video, in the hype, we have Ned showing up in the crowd when 21 Pilots are on that roof. So in that setting, the music is being shared with a large audience to the point where an important character such as Ned is just being, you know, out there in that crowd. He's being exposed to all these people. Anyways, all that to say that I really enjoyed this music video. I do like how it fits within the other Trench videos. I feel like they all highlight really important elements of each song. And if we put them all together, I feel like there is this continuity to them, and we have these symbols that are being laid across the videos that helps us connect them. So it tells a beautiful story, and I'm really appreciative of that. Like I said earlier, The Hype is one of my favorite 21 Pilots songs, and I feel like this music video does do it justice. So that's my opinion. I really liked it. That's what I thought of the music video and the song and how they relate. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. You know, I always love hearing what you guys have to say. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. I always appreciate the support. And please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and would like to see some more reaction videos from me. Hope you guys all have a great day, and I will see you all next time. Have a great day, y'all.